to really worry about now, other than, you know, we need to make amends with our friends, and if he overstepped the boundaries, I'm sure he'll go ahead and make that call.
We've had some heated exchanges, as you know, over these past few weeks since President Trump took office. Not only now, this uproar that has developed with the UK, but with the Prime Minister of Australia, another key U.S. ally. There was the canceled trip to Washington by Mexico's president, another important ally of the U.S., some harsh criticism of Sweden, all of them important U.S. allies. So how concerned are you about these incidents, that they could be hurting U.S. credibility around the world?
Well, you know, sitting on the Foreign Affairs Committee for the last 4 years, our credibility has already been damaged by our foreign policies, not just in the last 8 years, but over the last 15 years. We certainly want to have the best foot forward and the best image of the United States of America. And when I talked to the Prime Minister or the ambassador from Australia, he said that call that Donald Trump had to the Prime Minister of Australia was way overblown. It wasn't near what was in the media. And so, you know, I think we need to tread into this a little bit softer and not take everything at face value, what you hear on the news, no offense. And, you know, it's just an issue at the moment. And I think everybody needs to step back. You know, if we were to look at stuff on a weekly basis instead of moment by moment, I think we'd all be better served. But I know you guys have a job to do, and you report what's out there.
You know, we got a job to do. And I want to just point out what the House Speaker, Paul Ryan, said to me yesterday on these allegations by the president. The White House is still sticking by those allegations against President Obama on the surveillance, on the wiretapping. Listen to what the Speaker said.
We have not seen any evidence that there was a wiretap or a FISA court order against Trump Tower or somebody in Trump Tower.
And as you know, he's part of that so-called Gang of Eight that gets briefings by the intelligence community, the law enforcement community, the most sensitive classified information. He flatly says we have not seen any evidence of any such development involving surveillance or wiretapping by Obama against Donald Trump. Are you with the Speaker on this? Have you seen any evidence?
I haven't seen any evidence, but I also know that, you know, Mr. Trump is smart enough that if he says something, there must have been something that made him react that way. And so let that take it where it's going to be and do the investigation accordingly, and then have either a recanting of what was said, or, you know, it'll be justified that much more.
Congressman, as usual, thanks so much for joining us.
Been a pleasure, Wolf. Thanks. Have a great weekend.
Thank you. You too, Ted Yoho, joining us. Up next, a Democratic congressman and member of the House Intelligence Committee, Joaquin Castro. He'll discuss the White House apology to the UK, Monday's Russia hearing before the Intelligence Committee, and a lot more. Stand by for that. In the meantime, we've got some breaking news coming into CNN. We have new information about the man arrested Friday night after he jumped the White House fence and was discovered by a U.S. Secret Service officer near the south entrance to the executive residence of the White House. The president was inside the White House at the time. Our correspondent Jessica Schneider is with me right now. Jessica, you're getting some new information. Tell our viewers, it's pretty shocking what we're learning.
It is, Wolf. New information now about that stunning and potentially dangerous breach on the White House grounds that happened 1 week ago. Of course, 26-year-old Jonathan Tran was arrested for this, but the new details we're learning now is that it took officials 15 minutes or more to actually track him down after he had tripped and then evaded numerous detections and alarms on the White House grounds. So to break it all down for you, this was just about 1 week ago, last Friday. We understand that 26-year-old Jonathan Tran was detected somewhere on Pennsylvania Avenue about 6 hours before this breach even happened. Then around midnight, we know that he climbed over a fence at the Treasury building, which is immediately adjacent to the White House. He then tripped a sensor alarm. But the problem here was that even though this alarm was tripped and there was an investigation into it, he wasn't detected. He managed to evade several guards. He actually snuck beyond one Secret Service post, moved closer to the White House. An officer did come to investigate. But then This intruder crossed over East Executive Drive, jumped another White House gate near the East Wing. It was a guard post that is not routinely staffed. It likely wasn't staffed that night. And then we understand that he was on the grounds of the White House for at least 15 minutes before finally being caught by these Secret Service members. So obviously a huge breach that as this investigation is unfolding, we're learning more information about. We do know that at this point, the Secret Service is undergoing a formal mission assurance review to see exactly how this happened, how these multiple alarms were tripped, how this intruder went without detection for more than 15 minutes. So, Wolf, obviously a huge breach that set off alarm bells last Friday night. And now the Secret Service is conducting that formal review. But a lot of questions today. How did that 26-year-old evade Secret Service officers for more than 15 minutes?
And he was spotted, 6 hours earlier, simply walking around the White House on Pennsylvania Avenue, right?
That's right. We know that 6 hours previous, around 6 p.m. on Friday night, last Friday night, he was spotted on Pennsylvania Avenue. And then about 6 hours later, we know that there's video surveillance that shows him jumping that fence near the Treasury building and getting onto the White House grounds. That is when he set off the multiple alarms, avoided detection for more than 15 minutes. And now the Secret Service doing that massive mission assurance review.
And just to be precise, Jessica, for 15 minutes, the alarms were going off. All of the Secret Service, uniformed personnel, others, they knew there was something wrong and they couldn't find this guy for 15 minutes? That's
what we're hearing from our Secret Service sources, is that, yes, these alarms were tripped. But despite that, this intruder, this 26-year-old who was wearing a backpack, he avoided detection for that entire time.
And the President of the United States was inside the residence at that time. Pretty shocking development indeed. I know you're working, your sources will get more information. Jessica, thank you very much. We're getting some live pictures once again from the White House East Room. Reporters are now inside. Guests are inside any moment now. President Trump and the visiting German Chancellor Angela Merkel will hold a joint news conference, their first meeting since President Trump took office. We'll have live coverage of that. That's coming up.
Africa View, in association with MTN.
Referred to by Winston Churchill as the Pearl of Africa, Uganda is attracting an ever-increasing number of tourists. The highly respected travel publisher Rough Guides said the East African country is one of the top 5 countries to visit in the world this year. Every year, hundreds of thousands of people visit the national parks. In 2015, tourists spent $1.366 billion. This year, they expect 60,000 visitors from the US. Some of Uganda's main attractions include the Bwindi National Park, which covers about 128 square miles and is home to a large mountain gorilla population of around 340. The Murchison Falls, in the northwest of the country, is situated in one of Uganda's most well-established conservation areas.
Next time on Vital Signs, on the remote island nation of Iceland, an ambitious project aims to map the genome of the entire population.
You see vials and vials of blood. This represents more than half the country's genetic material, 150,000 people.
See how this study can help with the advancement of science and medicine around the globe.
When you begin to think about life, all life on Earth is rooted in DNA.
Vital Signs, Saturday on CNN, in association with Dubai Healthcare City. Around the world, CNN is the #1 news channel. Seen by more people, in more places, on more screens. This is CNN.
I'm Aisha Sase in Los Angeles.
I'm John Balls in San Bernardino, California. You're watching CNN's breaking coverage of that mass shooting.
A couple hundred people here now marching on to City Hall here in San Francisco.
You didn't name Bill Cosby there. Many people again will ask the question, why now?
Donald Trump came all the way down here, and the issue of who would pay for the wall just never came up.
A deal can be done and can result in the release of some girls.
With information moving at lightning speed, you need a news program to help put it all into perspective. We move fast to deliver in-depth world news and emerging tech trends, bring what's next into focus for you. And that is Newsstream, the only international news program anchored from right here in Hong Kong. And we're happy to have you along for the ride.
Newsstream with Christy Lou Stout. Weekdays, only on CNN. Business is always changing. Keep up with CNN Money. Maggie Lake is live in the heart of the world's economic epicenter, New York City, tracking all the action of the stock exchanges and the big business stories from around the world. Get top analysis of market movement and a daily breakdown of financial headlines. CNN Money with Maggie Lake. Weekdays only on CNN.
Right now, news is changing our world. It may humble us, confuse us, or even shock us. Right now, as we cover the news, we don't know where the story will take us. We do know these stories will affect our future, our tomorrow, in ways we're just right now starting to understand.
The World Right Now with Hala Gurani. Weekdays only on CNN.
Looking at live pictures right now from inside the East Room over at the White House, President Trump and visiting German Chancellor Angela Merkel. They'll be walking in there momentarily. Their joint news conference about to take place. They'll be taking questions from reporters after making opening statements. Later, they'll have a working lunch. They've been meeting in the Oval Office. We're going to have live coverage. That's coming up right here on CNN. Chancellor Merkel's visit comes as the president stands by his unsubstantiated claims that former President Barack Obama ordered surveillance of him over a Trump Tower in New York City during the campaign. And as the White House apologizes now to the British government for appearing to suggest, or at least give some credibility to a report that Britain actually helped with that surveillance against Donald Trump. I want to bring in Congressman Joaquin Castro. He's a Democrat from Texas. He's a member of the Foreign Affairs Committee, also a member of the Intelligence Committee. Congressman, thanks very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Wolf.
Let me get your reaction first to this White House blunder that allowed the White House press secretary, Sean Spicer, to read this assertion, this claim by a Fox News contributor that Britain was actually, British intelligence services were surveying, were monitoring Donald Trump over at Trump Tower during the campaign on the request of President Obama. What's your reaction to that? Because the British government is very upset. The White House has now apologized.
Wolf, it's all just very strange. That came at a press conference which happened right after the Senate intelligence heads, the chairman and the ranking member, made the comment that they basically had seen no evidence of any kind of surveillance or wiretapping. And it seemed to be Sean Spicer and the administration pursuing one more avenue to suggest that President Obama somehow wiretapped or surveilled candidate Trump. And it's not only strange, but it also starts to really damage one of our best relationships with such a long-standing ally in Britain. And then, to hear the White House even now and those who are defending Sean Spicer not be able to admit that they made a mistake, for some of the members of Congress to still defend it is just bizarre.
Yeah, I think the National Security Advisor, General McMaster, admits this was a major blunder on the part of the White House, and it required a strong reaction. Clearly from the British government, they got that, but then the U.S. now apologizing to the British government. As you know, Germany is a very strong intelligence sharing partner of the United States as well. As we go into this joint news conference, are you concerned that all these wiretapping allegations out there could undercut that kind of intelligence cooperation, not only with Britain or Germany or other close allies?
That is a concern. Our allies have to feel like they can trust us, that they have confidence in us, and anytime you make wild allegations like that are unsubstantiated, it starts to undercut the trust that other countries have in the United States.
Have you seen any evidence, and you're a member of the Intelligence Committee, Congressman, that some intelligence services who normally cooperate extremely closely with the U.S. right now are reluctant to provide certain very sensitive information to the U.S. as a result of all of this?
Well, some of this, of course, that's classified, I can't speak to, but it's something that I know that I'm monitoring and other members of the committee are monitoring as well.
What does that mean, you're monitoring? Explain, elaborate a little bit.
Sure. Well, we're trying to gauge to make sure that our relationships around the world with longstanding allies like Germany and Britain are not damaged by some of the rhetoric that's coming out of the White House and some of the new policies that are being put into place. You remember that as a candidate, President Trump was critical not only of Chancellor Merkel, but also of the relationship with NATO and the United States. He was critical of our own intelligence agencies. So all of these things create what can become a hostile environment and really upset the very careful balance in the relationships between the United States and our allies around the world.
Congressman Castro, you're a member of the House Intelligence Committee. You're going to have an open hearing on Monday with the FBI director, the leaders of the U.S. intelligence community. They're going to be discussing all of these allegations. So also Russia's cyber attacks against the U.S. during the presidential election. So what do you expect we will learn from that hearing?
Well, it is an open session, so it's not in a classified setting where more information would come out. But there are a few things I think that I hope that we hear about. First, many of us have been asking a fundamental question, which is whether any Americans cooperated or conspired with the Russians who interfered with the 2016 presidential election. What I would like for the director to discuss in open session is whether anybody is being investigated, whether any Americans are being investigated because of that. And then also, basically the scope of the investigation. And then finally, a timeline for resolving that question and so many others that have to do with Russian interference in the 2016 election.
But you've seen no hard evidence to corroborate that allegation. General Clapper a couple of weeks ago said he didn't have any evidence that there was any collaboration or any cooperation between Trump campaign officials and Russia in connection with their cyber attacks.
Well, I've commented before that I think there is a gap in terms of what the intelligence agencies know and what the committees have been told. And hopefully we will start to close that gap starting on Monday.
Do you think there are certain officials, Americans, U.S. citizens who were involved in the Trump campaign who are now being investigated by the FBI or other agencies?
Wolf, that's something that I can't say conclusively.
Let's talk about something else you could talk about, because I know you had a chance to meet with the Homeland Security Secretary, John Kelly. Some of your colleagues who spoke afterwards say Kelly was dismissive of their questions, unaware of some immigration policies, and they were left with more questions. What was your takeaway?
That the secretary basically held the administration's line. For example, he was asked about separating women and children at the border. He said, in fact, that it's not happening now, but it's something that's on the table, and they may pursue it. He was, asked about the civil rights violations that have come up, the flight from San Francisco to New York, for example, where people were asked about their identification, and also other American citizens being detained, Muhammad Ali's son, for example. But he was very defensive of the agency and the organization and their policies. He was also presented evidence. One of the members from California had a big photo blown up of Border Patrol agents staked out at a church in California. He was presented that, and also a letter from a bishop who asked that they not do that. He said that, they don't go to churches. He basically denied that it was happening. And so that's why I think some folks felt like his tone and his approach was dismissive. I hope that the secretary and the department will be open to hearing about instances where perhaps their agents are doing things that they shouldn't do. What we want to see out of his office is cooperation, most of all.
I interviewed Secretary Kelly a couple of weeks or so ago, and he defended the decision to go ahead and separate children who cross the borders illegally from their parents, saying this would be a deterrent to convince others not to even try. I assume he made that case to you as well.
He did. He spoke about that. Their point is that they want to do everything to keep people from making that journey. But the fact is, when these women and children do arrive at the border of the United States, to separate these women from their children, quite honestly, is inhumane.
Joaquin Castro, thanks so much for joining us, the congressman from Texas. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Wolf.
President Trump, getting ready for this joint news conference with Angela Merkel. But in the meantime, we're just getting some videotape now of the meeting he and Merkel have been having with German and American business leaders. We're going to show you that videotape right now, and then we'll get ready for the news conference.
Chancellor, thank you very much. Such a great honor to get to know you, to be with you. I want to thank all of the business leaders who have joined us to discuss a subject that's very important to me, training our workforce for the 21st century, especially with respect to manufacturing jobs. We're working every day to bring back jobs to our country, and thousands are already coming back. You're seeing it, you're reading about it in the papers every single day. We want to make sure that we have the workforce development programs we need to ensure these jobs are being filled by American workers. Germany and the United States have incredible opportunity to deepen our partnership as we continue to develop a strong workforce in both of our countries. Both Germany and the United States are pioneering job training programs. Here in the United States, companies have created revolutionary high-tech and online courses. And of course, for decades, Germany has been a model for highly successful apprenticeship. That's a name I like, apprenticeship programs. As a result, Germany's youth and unemployment rate is much lower than many of the other countries, especially the EU countries. I welcome collaboration between our two countries and our industry leaders. We have some of our great industry leaders here, as you know, Chancellor. Great people. We must embrace new and effective job training approaches, including online courses, high school curriculums, and private sector investment that prepare people for trade, manufacturing, technology, and other really well-paying jobs and careers. These kinds of options can be a positive alternative to a 4-year degree. So many people go to college 4 years, they don't like it, they're not necessarily good at it, but they're good at other things like fixing engines and building things. I see it all the time, and I've seen it. When I went to school, I saw it. I sat next to people that weren't necessarily good students, but they could take an engine apart blindfolded. Companies across the country have a chance to develop vocational training programs that will meet their growing needs and to help us achieve greater prosperity. The German apprenticeship model is one of the proven programs to developing a highly skilled workforce. Germany has been amazing at this, and I'm glad that the leaders of so many companies represented today have recently launched successful programs right here in the United States. And we need that because we're training people as the jobs are pouring back in, and they are coming back in big league. I believe that both countries will be stronger if we continue to deepen our bilateral cooperation on vocational training as we build off the best ideas, create the greatest opportunity for growth, and improve the lives of so many workers. I want to thank everybody in the room. I want to thank my daughter Ivanka, who's with us today. And mostly, and most of all, I want to thank Chancellor, I want to thank you very much. It's a great honor to have you in the White House. It's a great honor to have you in the United States, and I look forward to spending time with you.
The President leading a roundtable discussion with German and American business leaders, his top aides in there as well. You just heard him mention that his daughter Ivanka Trump is there, and the German leadership inside as well. You're looking at live pictures from the East Room over at the White House, where they will be, the Chancellor and the President will be having a joint news conference momentarily. I want to go to CNN's senior White House correspondent Jeff Zeleny. He's already over there in the East Room. All right, Jeff, set the scene for us. We're a few minutes away, right?
We are indeed, Wolf. We do expect the German Chancellor and the President to be coming in here momentarily. You just saw those pictures there from the cabinet room, and we saw American CEOs and German CEOs certainly underscoring the business relationship and the importance of this visit. And Wolf, I would say that this is the most consequential face-to-face visit with a foreign leader so far yet in this administration here, no question. But boy, is it fraught with interesting history from 2015, 2016. If you'll remember back, in 2015, Donald Trump suggested that Angela Merkel was ruining Germany. It was a tweet he sent out using his exact words on that, talking about immigration. Of course, he has many differences with her, but Wolf, I was standing outside of the West Wing of the White House this morning when she was arriving, and of course, he greeted her with open arms. So this is very much a reset of this relationship. With any new president, she, of course, is a long-standing leader, and so this is going to be, the beginning of a get-to-know-you process. She was actually asked a couple days ago in Germany what she thought of the new president. Of course, she had a very good relationship with Barack Obama and George W. Bush before that. So for her, this is her third American president here. And she said this, Wolf. She said, out goes the president, and a new one comes in. So sort of an understated statement there, but interesting that, there is this this dynamic coming into them, into the meetings here. So many differences on immigration, on climate change. So she, will be resetting this relationship here, and each of these leaders will be taking two questions here from each side, the German press and the U.S. press. And Wolf, this should be underway here any moment in the East Room. Wolf.
We're standing by for live coverage. All right, Jeff, thank you. I want to bring in our chief international correspondent, Christiane Amanpour, who's joining us from London. Christiane, President Trump, he, as you heard, he's been very critical of the chancellor in the past during the presidential campaign. He often blasted Germany's decision to admit hundreds of thousands of refugees from North Africa and the Middle East into Germany. Listen to this.
As far as Merkel's concerned, she ought to be ashamed of herself what she's done, because Germany, they're having riots in the street of Germany. They can't believe this is happening in Germany. And I had a lot of respect for her as a leader, and she blew it when she allowed this to happen, this migration.
The German people are going to riot. The German people are going to end up overthrowing this woman. I don't know what the hell she's thinking. You watch what happens to Angela Merkel, who I always thought of as a very good leader until she did this. I don't know what went wrong with her. I don't know. What went wrong? Angela, what happened? You know what a disaster this massive immigration has been to Germany and the people of Germany.
All right, Christiane, those are tough words. How do they get over that?
Well, they're very tough words, but what is going to happen is that Angela Merkel is talking to Donald Trump with a newfound sense of self-confidence. This whole idea of the populist wave because of these refugees has been negated in two elections now, Austria and in the Netherlands this week. So there's that sense of, of a new sense of confidence for Europe. Plus, that Angela Merkel was on a phone call with Donald Trump just a few days ago, sort of a few weeks ago, when he brought out his first Muslim nation travel ban, and she had to explain to him that the Geneva Conventions actually obligate international countries to help people who are fleeing war and death and all the other kind of things in their own home countries. So on that issue, I think they'll be talking about it. Obviously, she too can't see her country, open to every refugee in the world, and she's taken steps against that. But I think what you played just earlier also goes to the heart of this relationship, because Donald Trump has really made a transactional relationship between different countries. He's very keen on trade, as you know. She's very keen not to, and try to fend off any kind of protectionism. So that video you showed in the cabinet room where Donald Trump, the president, was actually praising Angela Merkel, praising German industry, praising the apprenticeships that they have done in their own country, and she's bringing that over to America as well. And we were reminded by a German ambassador, a former German ambassador, that she will also try to tell the president that his slogan, "Making America Great Again," can only happen with good and reliable partners like Germany and others in Europe. So she's going to remind him that actually Germany has invested something like $200 billion in the U.S. economy economy, apparently is responsible, Germany alone, for 750,000 American jobs. So all of these kinds of things are really very important. But I think on a global and bigger sort of international stage, she's going to be very keen to talk to him about Vladimir Putin, whether it's about interfering in the democratic process, as he's suspected of doing in the United States, and most definitely in Germany and other parts of Europe right now, or whether it's respecting international law, such as having to hold the line against invasions of Crimea, eastern Ukraine, and the like. So it's going to be a very interesting and very important conversation today.
It certainly will be, and we're going to have live coverage. Christiane, I want you to stand by. Jeff Zeleny, stand by as well. We're only moments away from the start of this critically important joint news conference between the President of the United States, the Chancellor of Germany. Both will take questions from reporters. Our live coverage will continue right after this.
¿Ha pensado invertir en Miami? El grupo inmobiliario PFS Realty le abre las puertas para hacer realidad su sueño invirtiendo en su propio negocio, asesorándole en la obtención de franquicias, inversiones muy accesibles, comprobadas fórmulas de negocios con reconocidas marcas y productos. PFS Realty.
I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them blue for me and you, and I think to myself, what a wonderful
those hours of preparation, anticipation, dedication. It all comes down to this. The 22nd Dubai World Cup, the world's richest race day. Saturday, March 25th at Meydan Racecourse. Book now at meydan.ae.
In Dubai, Rome turns to gold.
Join me, Kate Baldwin, for the latest in U.S. politics. We have smart discussions and a whole lot of fun.
State of America, tonight on CNN. Our planet's future hangs in the balance. We need to find solutions for Earth's big issues. Solutions to fight deforestation, to produce renewable energy, to clean our oceans and air, and solutions to revitalize our cities.
On Eco Solutions, we talk to people who are taking steps to help balance our environmental challenges and who show us how to make better choices every day.
Eco Solutions, Sunday on CNN, in association with Suzlon.
Meet the spiritually curious on the next episode of Believer.
I saw the destruction of the entire planet.
Jesus, with a Z, is a self-proclaimed prophet in Hawaii. He and his followers are building an ark. They're getting ready for the end of the world.
I am the Messiah!
He's either getting messages from the gods or he's crazy.
Is this more than a doomsday cult?
I'll follow that man to the horizon and beyond.
Believer, Saturday on CNN.
I'm Ben Wiedemann in Mosul, and this is CNN.
Looking at live pictures from inside the East Room over at the White House, President Trump and German Chancellor Angela Merkel, they should be walking in any moment now. They'll be taking questions from reporters afterwards. They'll have a working lunch. They've been meeting now for a while in the White House in the Oval Office. Our live coverage of the news conference is coming up momentarily. In the meantime, let's bring in our global affairs correspondent Elise Labott, our chief national security correspondent Jim Sciutto, and our chief political analyst Gloria Borger. Gloria, you wrote a piece on CNN.com, very important piece, very good piece. Among other things, you write this about the credibility of the president. He's leading the free world. We're supposed to believe what he says and trust him. And if there's a crisis, we want to believe that he is considered calm and deliberative, as in not prone to tantrums. There's been a lot of commotion over these past nearly 2 weeks as a result of his accusations against the former President Barack Obama that Obama ordered the wiretapping of Trump Tower in New York City during the campaign.
Right. I think this goes to the question of his credibility. And I think that you have a foreign leader like Merkel, and they want to know that they can trust him, and they want to know that he is calm, and they want to know that he's not going to fly off at any time and criticize them the way he criticized Merkel during the campaign. They want these relationships to be strong because they're so important to the world. And so you have to know, if you're a leader, and my colleagues here can speak about this better than I can, that you can pick up the phone and call Donald Trump. If you're Merkel, call Donald Trump and say, what do you think about X, Y, and Z? What are we going to do about it together? And know that you're going to get a considered and informed response, not just a tweet. So I think these things have a bad impact.
Jim, this has taken place at a very sensitive moment in world affairs right now. We heard the U.S. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson, who's visiting South Korea, visited the DMZ. All of a sudden, he's saying all options are on the table when it comes to North Korea and its nuclear threats.
Absolutely. At a time when Trump's most senior national security advisors consistently identify North Korea as the most immediate national security threat, and that was the word that Obama and his team gave Donald Trump as he left the White House. That is a significant change. Him saying that it affects the strategic patience strategy that the Obama administration followed, and frankly, really, the Bush administration before it and the Clinton administration before that has failed. They're going to make a change. Question is what that change is. He says the military option is on the table, but so did President Obama. Question is how close, how high on the table is it? Will they actually use that? And what does it do to a country such as China that has real influence against North Korea? And also North Korea, how does it react? I mean, this is a country that reacts to threats like that. What does it do? It is not reticent about rattling its own sabers when necessary. And South Korea, rather, its neighbor, is often the target of those. So this is a very dangerous time in that relationship.
And they've got to get their act together, both the German Chancellor and the President of the United States. As we heard, there's been a lot of tension over these past many months, and the President's still upset that as far as NATO is concerned, Germany is not paying that 2% of its GDP that the NATO allies are supposed to spend. This is a big issue for President Trump.
Germany only spends about 1.2%, even though it has increased its spending. So, I mean, the president feels that this is a legitimate argument that previous presidents and secretaries of defense have said. I think it's a larger issue, not only about, what President Trump thinks is kind of the Europeans riding on the U.S. coattails of the American taxpayer, but there is an issue about European unity and whether this is a president that supports European unity. He sees Angela Merkel as the linchpin of European unity. And when he talks about the EU being just a vehicle for Germany to fleece the United States, I mean, this goes to the very heart of what he is doing in terms of working on more of these bilateral relationships. Some of his secretaries have gone out and give welcoming messages, but certainly she's going to want to solidify that this president's pro-Europe.
All right, we're going to have live coverage of this important joint news conference coming up. Let's take another quick break. We'll be right back.
Africa View, in association with MTN.
Referred to by Winston Churchill as the Pearl of Africa, Uganda is attracting an ever-increasing number of tourists. The highly respected travel publisher Rough Guides said the East African country is one of the top 5 countries to visit in the world this year. Every year, hundreds of thousands of people visit the national parks. In 2015, tourists spent $1.366 billion US. This year, they expect 60,000 visitors from the US. Some of Uganda's main attractions include the Bwindi National Park, which covers about 128 square miles and is home to a large mountain gorilla population of around 340. The Murchison Falls in the northwest of the country is situated in one of Uganda's most well-established conservation areas.
CNN Style, hosted by Derek Blasberg.
So, Carl, we're here in Paris. It's just before the Chanel Couture show.
No, step down just a little bit.
But I love his work, and in particular, I love this piece.
Very meticulously done. Finally, photography is paying its due to the world of fine art.
We're driving a 1982 Porsche.
Yes, this is a lot of fun to drive.
Next time on Vital Signs. On the remote island nation of Iceland, an ambitious project aims to map the genome of the entire population.
You see vials and vials of blood. This represents more than half the country's genetic material, 150,000 people.
See how this study can help with the advancement of science and medicine around the globe.
When you begin to think about life, all life on Earth is rooted in DNA.
Vital Signs, Saturday on CNN, in association with Dubai Healthcare City. Erin Burnett out front. Stories that matter.
You've got the money and you've got the passion, but how do you actually make a difference?
From the people making the headlines.
Did you and Donald Trump talk about his Muslim plan?
To wherever news breaks, Erin is there. One-on-one, in the field, and around the globe.
What makes you believe you can accomplish that sort of growth?
Erin Burnett out front. Saturday on CNN.
CNN Money, your new destination for business news. On TV, online, on the go. When you need it, where you want it. CNN Money.
Our live pictures coming in from the East Room over the White House. President Trump and German Chancellor Angela Merkel, they should be walking in fairly soon. Their delegations are beginning to walk into that room. They'll be taking questions after making opening statements. We'll have live coverage of that. Afterwards, they're going to have a working lunch over at the White House. I want to bring back our chief international correspondent, Christiane Amanpour. Christiane, give us a little bit broader picture now about the Trump administration, not just Germany, but Europe as a whole. What's been the reaction over these past 50-plus days?
Well, you know, as one ambassador here said, Donald Trump presents a stress test for Europe and much of the rest of the world as well. But we're talking about Europe right now. His main chief advisors, the ideologues like Steve Bannon, who believe that Europe is set to fall apart and who are not supporting the democratic institutions of Europe and who seem to want to see others spin off, that is a big problem for the rest of Europe. So Angela Merkel will be able today to tell Donald Trump, the president, that actually we have withstood this year already a populist backlash. We have faced down populists in the Netherlands. We've faced them down in Austria. We plan to face them down in France. And in my country, Germany, the populists, the nationalists, the right-wing, far right-wingers are way down in the polls. Right now, Angela Merkel is tied with her social democrat who's vying for the election. So on that issue, that'll be very important. On the issue of NATO, of course, she will build on what Donald Trump has already said, that they now believe NATO is vital, and she will say that, yes, we all need to pay more. We need to put that 2% into our NATO pot. And she'll agree with that. And then on the issue of Vladimir Putin, this is another thing that stresses Europe out no end, especially part of Europe, Western Europe, where for two reasons. Putin is believed, along with his Kremlin-backed fake news and interfering bot program, to be interfering in the elections to the benefit of these nationalists, whether it's Le Pen, whether it's AfD, the far-right group in Germany, whether it was Geert Wilders in the Netherlands, etc., etc. And the Germans are very, very worried about that, interfering in the democratic process, and they're very worried about a resurgent Russia, which wants to, put its power out around the world. So she's going to ask Donald Trump to, you know, she's probably going to explain and wonder why he hasn't actually criticized the Russian annexation and invasion of Crimea. And she's going to want to talk him through all that. But she does need a strong transatlantic relationship. And actually, Wolf, this is going to be one of the first times that President Trump gets to hear from a peer. Really, she is the senior leader in the Western Alliance. She's been the longest serving, and she is the senior leader. So instead of just hearing from his own advisors locked in the White House, he gets to hear now from a peer, a long-standing peer. Very important.
Let me bring our senior White House correspondent, Jeff Zeleny, into this. He's in the East Room of the White House. Jeff, and I don't know if it's going to come up in one of the reporters' questions. I'm sure it's not going to come up in the president's opening statement. But this rift that has now developed between the White House and Britain over Sean Spicer's reading a report from Fox News yesterday alleging that British intelligence was spying on Trump Tower during the campaign at the request of President Obama. How much of a problem is this right now?
Well, if there's no question that that will come up. Indeed, these whole claims of wiretapping, unfounded, unsubstantiated, have hung over this White House like a cloud for 2 weeks tomorrow. So this is, you know, the latest iteration in this. Of course, the White House did have to walk back its words and indeed apologize for what White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer said yesterday, suggested that the British were helping the President Obama spy on Trump Tower, said it simply wasn't true. So I do expect the president will be asked about that. But Wolf, I'm not sure how much it affects the relationship in the long run. Of course, the relationship between the U.S. and the British, very strong. It's withstood much more than this, of course, but it is a warning shot and a reminder that words indeed have consequences, and it's one that this White House is learning. But interesting, Wolf, as Christian was saying there about, you know, how long Chancellor Merkel has been in power, in office. This is indeed her third American president, and we are told that she has been talking to other world leaders who have already met with this president. She's been watching his speeches, watching his videos, trying to assess what he is like here. So, you know, this really is indication of how she is trying to, you know, reset, reframe a new relationship with a very, very different U.S. president here, Wolf. But they are going to be spending some quiet time after this with a luncheon as well as meeting in the Oval Office and with those CEOs we saw just a minute ago, Wolf.
I want to quickly go back to Christian in London. You're there in London. What's been the reaction to what Sean Spicer said yesterday, reading this totally unsubstantiated report alleging British intelligence was spying on Donald Trump during the campaign?
Well, Wolf, I have to tell you, from this side of the Atlantic, people simply just cannot believe what's coming out in presidential tweets and from the presidential spokesman as well at the podium there. They really find this extraordinary, and they know that it all came from beginning with a rant on Fox News, and they cannot figure out why the leader of the world's only superpower is putting so much, you know, flack out based on a unsubstantiated, you know, ideologue ranting on another network. It's very, very strange. And actually, it is very extraordinary that the United States accuses its closest transatlantic ally, you know, Britain, of doing this kind of thing. That is why Britain came out of the gate so fast. I mean, it's almost unprecedented for GCHQ to respond in real time to a news story. And it's unprecedented, as far as we can go back and figure out, that the, you know, British Prime Minister has had to demand not just an apology, but an assurance that this kind of calumny is not repeated. And this is a very important thing because it goes to the heart of the credibility of the American presidency. And everybody needs that trust in order to be able to have a strong defense going out into a highly troubled world. We've been talking about Russia. We've been talking about North Korea. These are immense issues, not to mention the global economy, war, refugees, all the other things that everybody has to deal with. So it is very, very troubling because it goes to the heart of what is the most powerful leader in the world thinking.
Gloria, is it just a rookie mistake over at the White House, or is there a bigger problem there?
I don't know. Maybe we're still into the first 100 days, but this was clearly considered by them. He read from a whole raft of clips, and I think Christian's question is the right one, which is the president has at his disposal all kinds of intelligence that he could declassify anytime he wants. But instead, the person representing him, speaking from the podium at the White House, is talking about something that was said on Fox News. I mean, that doesn't make any sense. And by the way, this administration always decries anonymous sourcing. Well, Sean Spicer was reading from piece after piece that relied on anonymous sources. They say are never accurate, and suddenly they say they are.
And it wasn't from a journalist at Fox News. It was from a contributor, Judge Napolitano, making this assertion, which the White House then read publicly before the whole world.
Listen, frankly, we shouldn't be surprised, right? It's not the first time it's happened. It happened throughout the campaign, and it's happened several times since he was inaugurated. Go back to the false and multiple times debunked claim of 2 to 3 million illegal voters in the election. And remember the promise at the time of the investigation into that? Where is that today? Just as there was a promise of an investigation into this, which has been denied by everybody, Republican and Democrat, who's been briefed on the intelligence. This is not new. This is a pattern, and it's a worrisome pattern that precedes the election and follows the election, and it gets the essential credibility of the office. And I will just echo Chris Young's point there, because I was just in Eastern Europe and speaking to officials there. It greatly concerns them, particularly because they're on the front lines, right, of this danger, particularly from Russia. And their question is this: do Mattis, Tillerson, McMaster, et cetera, speak for the U.S., or does Donald Trump? Because oftentimes you hear two different things. They don't know the answer to that question.
Everybody stand by. We're following the breaking news this hour as we keep an eye on the East Room at the White House. In just a few minutes, the President of the United States, the Chancellor of Germany, Angela Merkel, they will both be making statements to the press. The President held a business roundtable with Chancellor Merkel just a little while ago. U.S. and German business leaders were there as well. Listen to this.
Chancellor, thank you very much. Such a great honor to get to know you, to be with you. I want to thank all of the business leaders who have joined us to discuss a subject that's very important to me, training our workforce for the 21st century, especially with respect to manufacturing jobs. We're working every day to bring back jobs to our country, and thousands are already coming back. You're seeing it, you're reading about it in the papers every single day. We want to make sure that we have the workforce development programs we need to ensure these jobs are being filled by American workers. Germany and the United States have incredible opportunity to deepen our partnership as we continue to develop a strong workforce in both of our countries. Both Germany and the United States are pioneering jobs.
All right, I want to go quickly to our senior White House correspondent, Jeff Zeleny, is over in the East Room getting ready for this news conference. I know the stakes are very, very significant for both sides right now, but set the scene, Jeff.
Incredibly significant, Wolf, largely because these two leaders are just getting to know each other here, and there is so much history here. We have heard Donald Trump, before he was elected, while he was running, indeed had some harsh words, harsher than perhaps any other leader, certainly any leader like Angela Merkel. He said she was ruining Germany with her immigration policy. And of course, when he has talked about his own executive order that he has signed, which he also may be asked about here again today, he certainly has a different worldview from her entirely. But there is no question that Germany also wants to reset its relationship and get to know this president as well. It's something that happens with each change of power here, Wolf. But this is, without question, the most consequential face-to-face meeting so far that this new administration has had during about 2 months or so in office. But Wolf, again, those wiretapping allegations hanging over the president, the administration, they've been debunked by Republicans and Democrats alike. So all of these issues here, of course, facing this president, who after this is over has a luncheon with her and then flies to Florida. Wolf.
It's pretty shocking that the president and the White House have allowed all these wiretap allegations to fester now for almost 2 weeks. I want to bring in our senior international correspondent, Atika Schubert. She's joining us live from Berlin right now. So what's the overall view over there of the new American president and Chancellor Merkel's efforts right now to reset that relation? Remember, she's got her own re-election campaign going forward. She's got an election coming up in September.
Absolutely. I mean, I think a lot of Germans have been very puzzled and bemused to see what's happening in the first days of the Trump administration. But many Germans absolutely believe that they need a good working relationship with the United States. It's what the transatlantic alliance has been based on. And so many people here look up to the United States in many ways, and they want Angela Merkel to be able to reestablish some common ground with Trump. And this is what it comes down to. How can she establish that? We heard earlier them talking about manufacturing, trade. This is one reason why she brought two CEOs with her of Siemens and BMW to emphasize that German trade with the United States is good. BMW has the biggest plant, its biggest plant in North Carolina, and exports out of that plant out of the United States. So she's really trying to hit these common themes. This is how we help each other, and hoping that she can make a connection there.
I stand by, Atika. We're going to get back to you. I also want to bring in our global affairs correspondent, Elise Labin, our chief national security correspondent, Jim Sciutto, our chief political analyst, Gloria Borger. This U.S.-German relationship, you studied it, Elise, very, very closely right now. How would you mark it as far as the current state?
I would mark it, if we're on Facebook, as complicated and still being reshaped right now. I want to look at this headline that I saw on Politico today. It says, "The leader of the free world meets Donald Trump." And I mean, when you look at the kind of reversal of roles, you have this new president coming in, very untested, a lot of anxieties about him around the world. You have this president, this chancellor, as we've been saying, has been through 3 U.S. presidents, a bunch of crises around the world. She has no illusions about Vladimir Putin. And a lot of people think right now, with all of this talk about the relationship between the U.S. and Europe and the instability in the world right now, that she's one of the last best hopes to kind of pick up the mantle and pick up for what a lot of people are fearing is going to be a vacuum in U.S. leadership.
And remember that Merkel was key in planning Europe's response to the Russian annexation of Crimea and the sanctions. And I think she's going to want to know from Donald Trump, where are you on sanctions?
A great political cost because of the economy.
Great business cost as well. Lots of German trade with Russia.
So she took a risk, and also, by the way, she takes a political risk here if she gets too close to Donald Trump because he's so unpopular back home. So she has to go as a leader and say, I did this. I was important in these sanctions. What do you intend to do with Vladimir Putin? I mean, this is personal with her because she put herself out there so much.
We just saw members of the German delegation walking in. Presumably the U.S. delegation will walk in as well. Then the chancellor and the president finally will walk in, and they'll make their statements right now. What are you going to be listening for mostly, Jim?
If the president is challenged, one, on the wiretapping claim, and two, on this claim propagated by his press secretary that the British government spied on him, right? And one that, to some degree, the White House sort of tripling down on. They're now pushing back on any sense that they apologize to the British over this. And I'll tell you, I speak to British intelligence often. They don't often comment in public. Their comment yesterday, calling this report nonsense and utterly ridiculous, their words, not mine, remarkable. And that shows the level of concern that they had by hearing that from the White House podium.
Because they take that seriously when the White House press secretary, the spokesman for the president of the United States from the White House, makes this kind of assertion, even just citing some unsubstantiated report. That's significant.
And, you know, relationships do matter. You know, listen, countries have interests, right? And of course, these relationships with the UK and Germany are built on years of history and common interests, etc. But we know personal relationships matter as well. And we know, based on President Trump's comments about Germany in the past, that has to cause some difficulty in that personal relationship, and now this with the UK.
I don't think they're really I don't think they're really looking all that close. We talk about how Angela Merkel prepared for this meeting. I think a lot of people are saying to her, don't look at the tweets, don't think about the tweets, don't listen to all this rhetoric that he's talking about. Talk to people like McMaster, talk to Tillerson, see what the policies are. And that's the problem here when you're getting a mixed message between the rhetoric and what's being said at the podium and what these cabinet officials are saying are going to be what seems to be a reasonable policy.
You know, to Jim's point, though, these are two very different people. Right. You know, she is as cool as a cucumber. In many ways, that's why she and President Obama got along so well. And Donald Trump is not.
Christiane Amanpour is still with us as well. We see the Vice President, Christiane, walking in. There you see the Vice President, Reince Priebus, Steve Bannon. You see Wilbur Ross, the Secretary of Commerce. And there you see the newest Deputy National Security Advisor, Dina Powell, is there as well. Jared Kushner, the son-in-law, Senior Advisor to the President, and the President's daughter, Ivanka Trump. They're all walking in right now. Stephen Miller, Kellyanne Conway. So presumably within the next few seconds, the President and the Chancellor will be walking in as well. And Christiane, I may have to interrupt you, but what's the reaction to this whole White House team that has emerged?
Well, again, people are very concerned about who it is they should be talking to. You're seeing in the middle of your picture now a person who's developed a reputation around the world as this inscrutable ideologue who believes in a fairly extreme view of what the President of the United States and the U.S. should be doing around the world. You know, essentially watching and presiding over a fractured and breaking up EU. That doesn't look like it's happening, at least not yet. The EU has fended off 2 existential threats with 2 recent elections, and they probably will in France and Germany as well. Very concerned also about Bannon and the others and their protectionism and what they call their economic nationalism. They believe in Europe that you can't have a protectionist policy because that will affect and hurt everybody, not just their questions, their citizens, but the U.S. as well.
All right, Christiane, hold on, because the President and the Chancellor, they are now walking in. Everyone is standing to receive them. The President will open first.
Thank you very much. Chancellor Merkel, it is a great honor to welcome you to the People's House, the White House. Our 2 nations share much in common, including our desire for security, prosperity, and peace. We just concluded a productive meeting with the German and American companies to discuss workforce development and vocational training. Very important words. Germany has done an incredible job training the employees and future employees and employing its manufacturing and industrial workforce. It's crucial that we provide our American workers with a really great employment outlook. And that includes making sure that we harness the full potential of women in our economy. My administration is in the process of rebuilding the American industrial base. A stronger America is in the interest, believe me, of the world as a whole. I reiterated to Chancellor Merkel my strong support for NATO, as well as the need for our NATO allies to pay their fair share for the cost of defense. Many nations owe vast sums of money from past years, and it is very unfair to the United States. These nations must pay what they owe. During our meeting, I thanked Chancellor Merkel for the German government's commitment to increase defense spending and work toward contributing at least 2% of GDP. I want to thank the Chancellor for her leadership in supporting NATO and its efforts in Afghanistan. This has come at significant cost, including the lives of over 50 German soldiers whose sacrifice we greatly honor. I also appreciate Chancellor Merkel's leadership, along with the French president, to resolve the conflict in Ukraine, where we ideally seek a peaceful solution. Most importantly, our 2 countries must continue to work together to protect our people from radical Islamic terrorism and to defeat ISIS. I applaud Chancellor Merkel for Germany's contributions, both civilian and military, as a counter-ISIS coalition member. We also recognize that immigration security is national security. We must protect our citizens from those who seek to spread terrorism extremism, and violence inside our borders. Immigration is a privilege, not a right. And the safety of our citizens must always come first, without question. Over lunch, the Chancellor and I will talk about our economic partnership. We must work together towards fair and reciprocal trade policies that benefit both of our peoples. Millions of hardworking U.S. citizens have been left behind by international commerce, and together we can shape a future where all of our citizens have a path to financial security. The United States will respect historic institutions, and we will also recognize the right of free people to manage their own destiny. The close friendship between America and Germany is built on our shared values. We cherish individual rights, we uphold the rule of law, and we seek peace among nations. Our alliance is a symbol of strength and cooperation to the world. It is the foundation of a very, very hopeful future. Thank you.
Sehr geehrter Herr Präsident, meine Damen und Herren, es ist mir eine große Freude, hier heute im Weißen Haus zu sein und mit Präsident Donald Trump ein erstes persönliches Gespräch zu führen. Ich habe im Vorfeld dieses Aufenthalts
exchange of views. In the period leading up to this visit, I've always said it's much, much better to talk to one another and not about one another, and I think our conversation proved this. We talked about the international situation. We talked about also apprenticeship programs when we met with CEOs and apprentices around a round table. As regards the shared interests that we have, let me look back into the past. We, the Germans, owe a lot to the United States of America, particularly as regards the economic rise of Germany. This was primarily due to the help through the Marshall Plan. We were also able to regain German unity after decades of the United States standing up for this together with other allies and standing by our side during the period of the Cold War. And we are very gratified to know that today we can live in peace and freedom as a unified country due to that. So I was gratified to know that the President underlined how important he thinks NATO is. NATO is of prime importance for us, and it was not without very good reason that we said during our summit meeting in Wales that also Germany needs to increase its expenditure. We committed to this 2% goal until 2024. Last year we increased our defense spending by 8%, and we're going to work together again and again on this. And we said that obviously defense and security has a lot of different assets and facets to it. On the one hand, it's supporting missions in Africa, for example. It's also promoting development assistance, but it's also helping missions in Africa, for example, in trying to stand up for their own safety and security. We continue to be in conversation. What was important for us today was that we were able to talk about Afghanistan, talk about what, as the President quite rightly said, the continuing mission of Germany in Afghanistan. I am very glad that the United States are intending to continue to commit to the Afghan mission as well. Together we fight against Islamist terrorism. Germany is going to step up its work and is going to continue its work in Afghanistan and also in Syria. We're going to monitor the situation there very closely. We're going to work on political solutions in Syria, but also in Libya, what we talked about. I am very gratified to know that the American administration and also the President personally commit himself to the Minsk process. We need to come to a solution of this problem. There has to be a safe and secure solution for Ukraine, but the relationship with Russia has to be improved as well. Once the situation there on the ground is clarified, Minsk is a good basis, but unfortunately we haven't made yet the headway that we want to, but we are going to work together with our experts in the next few months to come on this issue. I am also here in my capacity as G20 President. You know that we will be hosting the G20 the G20 summit, this year, and I'm very pleased that the President has committed to attending this summit. We're going to talk at some length over lunch about the issues. We say trade has to be rendered fairer. There has to be a win-win situation. We can talk about the details of that. We've already seen today when we had an exchange with our CEOs and also with our apprentices what sort of potential we can tap, what sort of potential our two economies have. It's very moving to see, particularly meeting with these young people, what sort of work towards the future is being done by our companies there. So particularly in this period where we are transiting from traditional manufacturing to Industry 4.0, capacity building, skills are so important, incidentally, not only for young people, but also for those who maybe have lost their jobs and need to be reskilled in order to find a job again. And that is an issue I know is very important for you here in the United States, but it's also important for us in Germany. So I can say there are a number of issues where we will continue to cooperate very closely on the level of our experts, but also on our level. We had a very good first exchange of views, so I'm very much looking forward to the talks we will have over lunch. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll do a couple of questions. Mark Halpern.
Thank you. A lot of Americans now have anxiety like 8 years ago as the government here debates what to do about health care. So I'm wondering if you can tell people what your bottom lines are, what's non-negotiable. You talked in the past about saying no one should deny health insurance if they can't afford it. You talked about
the gentleman needs to use a microphone.
Are those your part of your bottom line? Would you veto any piece of legislation that violated those? Madam Chancellor, I'd like to ask you. President Trump's got a different style than the most recent past U.S. presidents. I'm wondering what you think of that style. If you think it's good for the world, or if you've got any reservations. Thank you both.
Thank you, Mark. We just have a really wonderful group of people meeting later. We met with 12 pretty much no's in Congress. You saw that a little while ago, and they went from all no's to all yeses. And we have a lot of yeses coming in. It's all coming together. We're going to have great health care. It's going to be passed, I believe, I think substantially and pretty quickly. It's coming together beautifully. You have the conservative groups, you have other groups, everybody wants certain things. In the end, we're going to have a great health care plan. Now, I have to tell you that Obamacare is a disaster. It's failing. I was in Tennessee. We had a tremendous crowd the other night, and they have half of the state is uncovered. The insurance companies have left, and the other half has one insurance company, and that'll probably be bailing out pretty soon also. They have nobody. You have many states where they have one, and you have a lot of places now where they'll have none. Obamacare will fail. It will fold. It will close up very, very soon if something isn't done. I've often said politically the best thing I can do is absolutely nothing. Wait 1 year, and then even the Democrats will come say, please, please, you got to help us. But it's not the right thing to do for the people. We have a great plan. We have a plan that's getting more and more popular with the Republican base, with the conservative base, and with people generally. The press has covered it very inaccurately. People are truly covered well, and I think it's going to be something that's going to be a model to be looked upon. I'll tell you after we're finished.
Ja, danke schön.
Well, I'm here as Chancellor of the Federal Republic of Germany. I represent German interests. I speak with the President of the United States, who, stands up for, as is right, American interests. That is our task, respectively. And I must say that I was very gratified to know the very warm and gracious hospitality with which I've been received here. We held a conversation where we were trying to address also those areas where we disagree, but to try to bring people together, try to show what is our vantage point, what is the American vantage point, and then try to find a compromise which is good for both sides, because we need to be fair with each other. Each and everyone is expecting for his or her leader that something good comes out of it for their own people. For Germany, I can say, well, people are different. People have different abilities, have different characteristics, traits of character, have different origins, have found their way into politics along different pathways, which, well, that is diversity, which is good. Sometimes it's difficult to find compromises, but that's what we've been elected for. If everything just went like that without problem, well, you didn't need politicians to do these jobs.
Frau Dunz.
Ms. Dunz, please.
Christina Dunz, Deutsche Presseagentur.
From
Frau
the German press
Bundeskanzlerin, mit
agency.
Ihrer Erfahrung aus der DDR äußern.
Given the experience of the GDR, you are always saying that you are so confident that walls can fall also. For how dangerous do you think this isolationist policy of the US president is, what with the import tariffs that he plans, and also with the fact that he doesn't think the EU doesn't deal with the EU in a very respectful way? And Mr. President, America first, don't you think that this is going to weaken also the European Union? And why are you so scared of diversity in the news and in the media, that you speak so often of fake news, and that things, after all, in the end cannot be proven? For example, the fact that you have been wiretapped by Mr. Obama.
Go first. Nice, friendly reporter. Well, first of all, I don't believe in an isolationist policy, but I also believe a policy of trade should be a fair policy. And the United States has been treated very, very unfairly by many countries over the years, and that's going to stop. But I'm not an isolationist. I'm a free trader, but I'm also a fair trader. And our free trade has led to a lot of bad things happening. You look at the deficits that we have, and you look at all of the accumulation of debt. We're a very powerful country. We're a very strong country. We'll soon be at a level that we perhaps have never been before. Our military is going to be strengthened. It's been depleted. But I am a trader. I am a fair trader. I am a trader that wants to see good for everybody worldwide. But I am not an isolationist by any stretch of the imagination. So I don't know what newspaper you're reading, but I guess that would be another example of, as you say, fake news.
Also ich möchte es einfach mal so sagen.
Well, allow me, if I may, to put it in the following terms. We haven't yet had time to talk at a great length about economic issues, but I would say that the success of Germany in the economic area, but also on security and peace, that the success of Germans have always been one where the German success is one side of the coin, and the other side of the coin has been European unity and European integration. That's something of which I'm deeply convinced, and I'm not only saying this back home, I'm saying this here, I'm saying it in the United States, and also here in Washington in my talks with the President. Secondly, I believe that globalization ought to be shaped in an open-minded way, but also in a very fair way. Freedom of movement within the European Union, for example, is a very important element of our economic progress, of peace, has been for many, many decades. The European countries for many, many centuries waged wars against each other. We have to protect our external borders because, and there we have to work on the basis of mutual interest with our neighbors. Migration, immigration, integration has to be worked on. Obviously, traffickers have to be stopped, but this has to be done while looking at the refugees as well, giving them opportunities to shape their own lives where they are, help countries who right now are not in an ability to do so, sometimes because they have civil war. I think that's the right way of going about it, and this is obviously what we have an exchange of views about. But my position is the one that I've just set out for you.
I might add that we have many plants and factories coming back into the United States. Many jobs are coming back to Michigan, to Ohio, to Pennsylvania, to a lot of places where they were losing jobs. And we will have a different policy, but it's going to be a great policy for not only the United States, but a great policy worldwide, and I look very much forward to it. Kevin Cerulli.
What exactly, sir, do you think would unify this Republican Party? And then in terms of trade, what areas of common ground do you think you would be able to have with German governments? And then Chancellor Merkel, what do you anticipate could be a concession point that you would be willing to give to the administration in terms of negotiating trade?
Well, Kevin, I think we have a very unified Republican Party. After all, we have the presidency, we have the House, we have the Senate, and we're getting along very well, I will tell you. And if you were at the meeting that I just attended, where we took 12 no's or semi-no's, no yeses, and within a short period of time, everybody was very much on board, and a commitment to vote yes. I think we have a very unified party. I think actually more unified than even the election. You see, when they talk about me, I seem to be very popular, at least this week, within the party, because we have our highest numbers, the highest numbers that I've ever had in the party. So I think there's a great unification. Healthcare is a very, very difficult subject. It's a very complex subject, and it's a subject that, goes both ways. You do something for one side, and the other side doesn't like it. But it's really something that's come together very well, and I think it's going to be very, very popular, extremely popular. On trade, with Germany, I think we're going to do fantastically well. Right now, I would say that the negotiators for Germany have done a far better job than the negotiators for the United States. But hopefully we can even it out. We don't want victory, we want fairness. All I want is fairness. Germany's done very well in its trade deals with the United States, and I give them credit for it. And I can speak to many other countries. I mean, you look at China, you look at virtually any country that we do business with, it's not exactly what you call good for our workers. I mean, you look at the horrible NAFTA transaction. NAFTA has been a disaster for the United States. It's been a disaster for companies, and in particular, it's been a disaster for the workers. A lot of the companies just moved. But the workers are screwed. It's probably the reason I'm standing here. Maybe number one, that, and maybe the military. Building up our military, which we will do, and we will be stronger than ever before, and hopefully not have to use it. But we will be stronger, and perhaps far stronger than ever before. But it's probably the reason I'm here, is when you talk about trade. So I think that we are going to be a very different country. I think we're going to have great values. But in terms of our military, it's going to be much stronger. And our trade deals are going to be good, solid deals, not deals that lead to closing plants and tremendous unemployment. Okay? Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
When we speak about trade agreements, then the European Union is negotiating those agreements for all of the member states of the European Union. But obviously there's also input by the member states. They bring to the table what's important to them. We have underlined as German industry, German business community, and have made the experience that any kind of agreement that we have concluded, for example, at the very latest with South Korea, brought us more jobs, actually. People were very much concerned about losing jobs, for example, the automotive industry, but in the end it turned out, particularly as regards South Korea, in the end it turned out that both sides benefited. And I think it's only fair. That's the purpose of concluding agreements, that both sides win. And that is the sort of spirit, I think, in which we ought to be guided in negotiating any agreement between the United States of America and the EU. I hope that we can resume the agreement that we started. We have just now concluded an agreement with Canada, and I hope that we will come back to the table and talk about the agreement between EU and the US again. Mr. Graf, please. Thank you, Ansgar Graf from Die Welt. Madam Chancellor, a question addressed to you. Today we're talking about trade. The President in the past always said that he doesn't like multilateral trade agreements but prefers bilateral trade agreements. Do you think from the EU's point of view TTIP is a bilateral agreement with Washington on one side, the EU on the other side? Now, is the problem maybe that America, the President of the United States and the Europeans have a basically different understanding of what the EU is all about? That's my question addressed to you. And Mr. President, my question addressed to you, if I may.
Rejected White House claims that the alleged wiretapping on you, on the Trump Tower, on Trump Organization, or on members of your campaign was that British intelligence was either responsible for it or involved in it. After these claims are rejected, what is your take on that? Are there other suspects, or do you think it was a mistake to blame British intelligence for this? And by the way, my second question, are there from time to time tweets that you regret in hindsight?
Very seldom.
Very seldom.
Very
and
seldom.
You would have, so you never would have
Very
wished
seldom.
not to have
Probably
tweeted
wouldn't be here
something.
right now, but so very seldom. We have a tremendous group of people that listen, and I can get around the media when the media doesn't tell the truth, so I like that. As far as wiretapping, I guess, by this past administration, at least we have something in common, perhaps. And just to finish your question, we said nothing. All we did was quote a certain very talented legal mind who was the one responsible for saying that on television. I didn't make an opinion on it. That was a statement made by a very talented lawyer on Fox. And so you shouldn't be talking to me, you should be talking to Fox. Okay?
Thank you.
Ja, ich glaube, dass der Präsident seine
I believe that
dargestellt hat, was
the President has clearly set out his philosophy as to what trade agreements have to bring about for the American side as well. I personally don't think that Germany needs to negotiate and not the European Union. We've devolved our competences to the European Union, so the European Union, or rather the Commission, negotiates on behalf of the member states. So that's not going to prevent us from concluding agreements. For me, indeed, this would be then qualify as a bilateral agreement between the EU and the United States if we had it. But the question is, will it be of benefit to both countries or not? And let me be very honest, very candid. A free trade agreement with the United States of America has not always been all that popular in Germany either. There have been less demonstrations against this free trade agreement in the United States than in Europe and also in Germany. So I am very glad to note that apparently the sort of perspective on that has changed a little bit, at least in Germany too.
Thank you very much. Great honor. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
The President of the United States, the Chancellor of Germany, wrapping up their news conference. They dealt with several very important issues, perhaps most surprisingly, right at the very end in response to a question from a German reporter. The President seemingly wanted to joke about being wiretapped, clearly recalling that Angela Merkel had been wiretapped, had been monitored during the Obama administration. And then he pointedly says, at least we have something in common, seeming to suggest he still believes he, too, was wiretapped. He also didn't walk away from that assertion, the claim yesterday by the White House press secretary, quoting from a Fox News legal analyst, Judge Napolitano, that British intelligence was wiretapping, was surveying Trump Tower during the campaign on behalf of the Obama administration. The president simply saying he's a very talented legal mind on Fox, talked to Fox about that, but not apologizing to the British government, even after The British intelligence community said it was nonsense. It was ridiculous, that entire report. Lots to discuss. I want to bring in our panel, but I also want to go to our chief international correspondent, Christiane Amanpour in London. First, Christiane, I see a little smile on your face. I want your reaction. You're there in London. What the president just said, clearly not going to please the U.S. allies in the British government.
Except that he did say that I didn't have an opinion on that. This was just something that was being quoted, so take it up with Fox, not with us. So he kind of sort of avoided responsibility. That's called plausible deniability, I believe. But I think what was really, really interesting is the back and forth that underpinned the entire press conference on the issue of trade. Donald Trump kept saying, you know, we've been treated very unfairly. Of course, he thanked Germany for its investment in the American economy, for its apprenticeship programs, and that's going to be further taken up at their lunch today. But he went on and on about how it has to be a win-win, the typical stuff that he's been saying. Angela Merkel, kept coming back. She would not leave it alone, defending globalization, saying that, you know, yes, Germany has been a successful economy, much of it thanks to the United States, building up Germany with the Marshall Plan after World War II. But the other side of that coin is that we have also been good for a peaceful and prosperous European Union. So there are two sides to that coin. But what about the last zinger that she got in when, after Donald Trump, the president said that we're going to renegotiate our deals, that, you know, he talked about NAFTA being a disaster and et cetera, and Angela Merkel kept on saying, I hope we come back to the EU-US trade deal that's been shelved, but then saying, and by the way, free trade has not been so popular in Germany too. We have had more demonstrations against free trade than you in the United States. So this is going to be the basis, I think, of the relationship going forward. And they did, of course, talk about Russia and how to bring peace to Ukraine as well.
All right, Christiane, stand by. I want to go to our senior White House correspondent, Jeff Zeleny. He's in the East Room. You were there during this news conference. What were the headlines? What emerged in your mind?
Well, if I do think it is the wiretapping question, of course, again, that claim, that cloud has been hanging over the White House here. And just to give you a sense of perspective, Wolf, I am just about 5 or 6 feet from the president. The look on his face when it was a German reporter who asked the question about the British, about wiretapping, he didn't look pleased. The two U.S. reporters asked about health care, not, you know, certainly an important issue here in the U.S., not necessarily the news of the day here at the White House, but the look on the president's face when he was asked that was certainly interesting. But look, he took no responsibility for any of this. Wolf did not acknowledge that the bipartisan leaders of the Senate Intelligence Committee have said, look, there's simply no evidence to show that there was surveillance at Trump Tower. But he did point to Judge Napolitano who gives commentary on Fox. And he said this, he said, you shouldn't be talking to me, you should be talking to Fox. Now, again, this is a president who now, in his second month in office, has every bit of intelligence apparatus here in the U.S. at his disposal. And he answers that question, you should be talking to Fox, Wolf. So it may have answered it for this moment as he heads off to Florida for another weekend at his retreat there. But this certainly does not, put an exclamation point on it, if you will, because on Monday in the House Intelligence Committee, the FBI director will be testifying, and we do expect him to be asked about this. But also, slightly earlier on in this, the president did want to talk about health care. And one interesting thing I thought, Wolf, was that he said he is indeed flexible. He would not specifically say what negotiation points he would give on, but he said he would let you know when it's finished. So certainly a sign he wants to get this deal done here, Wolf. But the wiretapping question from that German reporter, certainly a newsmaking one today. I'm not sure we got the full answer, though, from this president. Wolf?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Gloria, that German reporter said, are there ever tweets you regret? He said, very seldom. Then he spoke about the reports that Angela Merkel's personal cell phone had been tapped by the U.S. intelligence community during the Obama administration. And then he said pointedly, at least we have something in common, seemingly trying to confirm that he, too, had been wiretapped.
That was his effort at a joke. First of all, I think we have to give kudos to the German reporters for being the ones to ask the tough questions today. It wasn't American journalists. We're talking about health care, as Jeff points out, an important issue. But the news of the day and the questions revolve around the president's claims on wiretapping and the international incident that occurred over Sean Spicer's reading of quotes from Fox News about the United Kingdom participating in spying. And I think the president today elevated it. I mean, he elevated it. He not only said, in the effort to make a joke to Angela Merkel, at least we have something in common, because you remember the incident when that her phones were tapped, her cell phone was tapped by Americans, and that was a big problem. So he tried to make a joke of it. But in making a joke of it, he didn't stand down one bit. And he said, just check with Fox News. And he said, and this is a quote from him, "We said nothing," meaning it's not our charge, even though it came from the podium in the press room by the president's own press secretary. He said, "We said nothing, that, you know, you shouldn't be talking to me, talk to Fox." And again, to Jeff's point, this is somebody who can look at classified information, who can find out exactly what occurred, who can get to the bottom of things if he wants to. But instead, there was no apology made. They were sticking by their story. And I think that if I were the Brits right now, I'd be even more furious than I was yesterday.
And he went one step further, Elise. He said that Judge Napolitano, the legal analyst, the contributor for Fox News, who made this claim, citing what he said were 3 sources that told him that British intelligence was spying on Trump Tower at the request of the Obama administration. The president said he's a very talented legal mind on Fox. He said, talk to Fox, which seemingly is giving a little bit more credence to this allegation, firmly denied by the British intelligence community.
Well, it doesn't give credence, because he didn't get it, as Gloria said, from his own intelligence community. He obviously, we know he follows a lot of media. He listens to Fox. He watches a lot of these blogs that are sympathetic to his ideas. And I think I mean, we were just sitting here a few weeks ago. I can't remember if it was with Justin Trudeau or Prime Minister Abe or Theresa May, when these are big, important meetings with world leaders. He's in front of cameras for a press conference about the important national security and issues that he wants to address, and we're being diverted by these type of scandals about the wiretapping, about the voter fraud, about so many, about the size of the crowds. I mean, this is really diverting, I think, from his agenda. This was an important meeting with Angela Merkel, and I sense that it was a little bit of a tense meeting when you talk about some of these trade issues. There was definitely a division on how they see it. He was saying this is going to be more friendly to America. We've been hurt before. I'm the president of America. And what she is saying is,